Today is the 31st of October, and with that, happy Samhain. To start this day, I want to say a goodbye to all the vivid hues of autumn. This brief moment in the year when nature explodes in yellow and orange will soon be over, as the wind tears the leaves from the branches one by one. November will now take over and leave the trees bare. This autumn seemed so much more colorful to me than in the previous years. My garden is almost completely covered in yellow and red and in gold when the sunlight hits the dry, crunchy leaves. And there's so many mushrooms growing out of the lawn, which doesn't bother me at all. I actually find it very fascinating. And of course there's lots of berries from spindle tree and rose bushes shining out of every corner. The birds will have a feast this season.
Good morning on this Halloween day. We can also call it Samhain if you want to go for the more pagan name, or neo-pagan shall we call it. I just want to spend a few little parts of my day with you. We have already said goodbye to the pretty colorful leaves outside. They have already started to fall down. So probably only a few more days until they are all gone. Makes me a little bit sad, but that's just how it is every year. Now, what I still have to do is burn some incense. I do usually somehow celebrate Samhain, so the pagan holiday, on the 31st. And that I usually do by honoring my ancestors and everyone who lived on this land before I was here, which is especially important to me because this is our first year living on this property. There were lots of people here before me in this house. Many parts of it date back to, I think, mid-1700. Or so, at least all the wood that was used in here. And that's lots of people. This house has seen a lot. So what I will do this year, again, just the same as I have done last year when we were just moving in on the 31st, is burn some incense. As my kind of little ritual of honoring everyone that came before me. I do have sage here and rosemary. I think I'm going to go with the rosemary. Last year, on around the time of the 31st of October, we were just starting to move in, as I just mentioned, carrying the first few boxes into the house from our previous flat. And I sat down right here on the kitchen table and also burned some incense, just like I am doing now, so it's kind of a full circle moment for me. I do, however, despite the very high age of this house, not have any ghost stories to tell. I always felt very comfortable in here and never encountered anything weird. This rosemary sometimes needs to be relit, so it keeps burning because it goes out quite fast. Sage usually burns for longer. That's why most people prefer sage, but this is rosemary that I collected on a trip to Croatia, right on the shore on a monastery island. And that was such a special moment, and I still love to burn this sage. No, not sage, this rosemary. I'm getting a bit confused here. The 31st of October is actually All Saints' Day, which is a Catholic holiday.
Actually, no, that is wrong. The 1st of November is All Saints' Day. I am so sorry for the confusion. And then the 2nd of November is All Souls' Day.
that everybody celebrates in Austria, because basically not everybody, most people here are Catholic and at least to some degree involved into the tradition. Myself included, I will drive to my grandma on the 1st of November probably, because she said she she pre-ordered a special kind of, it's not a pastry, it's also not bread. It's kind of sweet, big bread that people here bake, or usually the bakeries sell them at the time of this Christian holiday. And it tastes very good, and she said she pre-ordered a full one, so everyone has to come eat. And usually, of course, it's also a holiday where you go to the cemetery with all the family and you decorate the graves. So there's always this connection between the Christian holidays and the neo-pagan holidays, and I personally think that's quite beautiful, because I personally believe that religions can very well borrow from each other and get inspired by each other without it being an act of hate or anything. The narrative within many pagan groups is that the Christians stole everything from us, and I personally just do not like that thought, because in the end it's always a borrowing. Someone does something, then the other person does it too, and it's kind of a taking and giving. And luckily we are out of the times where people like me are burned. And as long as we respect each other, I do not see a problem. I did originally plan on doing a more research-heavy video on Samhain and All Saints' Day and the Christian holidays. However, I did not have the time to prepare it. So we're doing just a little bit of a lighter talking and saying goodbye to autumn and stuff instead. Maybe I'll do a bigger video about it next year. But I have to do lots of research stuff for university right now, and I cannot do this in my free time too. I just can't. My head is so full. All right, I guess it's time for a book review. Do you want to hear one? I bet you want to hear one. This one I have already shown you. However, in the past video, in that preparing for autumn, or I can't even remember what it was called, I didn't have it here physically, but I have now bought it, and I am about halfway through, and I feel confident enough now to give you my opinion on it. And it does kind of fit the vibe of, you know, Halloween and Samhain and all of that. So this is Slewfoot by Brom. First of all, I have to show you some of the beautiful artwork that is in here. They are so beautiful. And for me personally, for these pictures alone, I think the book was worth it. As far as I know, all of these pictures are painted by the author himself. And I love the pictures. They are beautiful, also the cover art. The story is a historical story. It's about Abita, a woman who is living with her husband outside of a village in a Puritan community. So there is lots of religious tensions between people, not because there's other religions necessarily, but because they have very strict rules to follow, and they punish people extremely hard for everyone who does in some little way not follow the rules. The story itself is set in 1666, which was a long time ago, in Connecticut. Did I pronounce that right? I have no idea. And what annoyed me in the beginning was these showcases of extreme extremely overdone belief, and at the beginning it was hard for me to read because it was so infuriating. Like, how can people treat each other that way and say it's the will of God? So at the beginning I did have a bit of a problem with the story. I had a bit of a bad feeling about it because it seemed very much like a story where you have one bad devil that is coming from the woods, and then you have the Christians that are blessed by God. And I feared that it was a story like that, and that it wouldn't go any deeper and into any layers, and I would not have kept reading the book if it would have been like that. But it was quite different. Later on, it became more meaningful when Abita discovered that the devil that was living in her woods was actually not the devil, but a creature that had more depth to it than just being good or bad. And I thought that quite beautiful. So I think the story is actually so far quite good and interesting, although I did have, as I said, a few problems to get into it in the beginning. Now, what is not 100% my thing is the writing style. It is a very simple writing style. Even if you are not native speaking English, you can easily read this book. I'm convinced of it. It's easy to read and it's quite fast to read. I just didn't have much time the last few weeks. That's why I got kind of stuck with it. However, I personally love reading classics more than anything else. And I did read a Bronte book right before this, and it's a whole other level of writing. It's a completely different style. So I don't love how it's written. I would have liked it to go even more into depth with describing with what the characters do and feel and think. I just feel like there's a story and it's told to me, but I feel like there's so much, there could have been so much more written about all of this, and that's what I'm missing. But that is completely my personal taste, because I do like very long stories that are told in detail, that use a more I don't know if it's complicated, but that use a, let's just stick with complicated writing style. So for me personally, it would probably be a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's good. Didn't regret buying it, especially because the art in it is so beautiful, but it's not my favorite book. It's also not my favorite book of the year. However, I want to read one more book of this author. It's the Krampus one, because Krampus is a mythical figure that is basically coming from my country. Everyone knows him here, or knows these figures here, and I just like to read what this author, what Brom has to say about Krampus in a kind of horror story. I think it is. So I'm gonna buy one more book by him and see if I like that a bit more. All right, that's it. I will go and eat something right now. And I hope you have a beautiful Halloween, Samhain, or All Saints Day, or whatever else you are celebrating. And if you don't celebrate, I hope you have a beautiful evening. Anyway.